The moment the ant wiggled free from Ash's ear, the diner seemed to gasp in unison, as if the walls themselves had been holding their breath. For 6 years, Rowan had watched his little boy live in a world without sound, and now, in the blink of an eye, silence shattered, leaving the world astonishingly loud, chaotic, and magical. Could a single ant undo years of quiet, and in doing so, unlock everything Rowan had been waiting for? Welcome, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. We're really glad to have you here. Before we get started, take a quick moment to say hello in the comments and let us know where you're watching from. I'd love to see where everyone is tuning in from, what city, state, or country you're joining us from today. Feel free to introduce yourself as well. And if you're watching live or on replay, let us know that too. Go ahead and drop it in the chat. And once again, welcome. We're excited to have you here. Brighton Falls, Ohio, prided itself on being a very normal city. Its streets were loud with honking cars and chatter. Its diners always smelled faintly of fried potatoes and sugar, and the rain never seemed to fall straight. It always angled, teasing umbrellas as it bounced off neon signs. But in a tiny apartment above Main Street, life was anything but normal. Rowan Blackwell, a 23-year-old vampire who favored red hoodies, black jeans, and sneakers that had seen better days, sat at the small kitchen table, hair tied back in a perfect white ponytail, staring at the cereal bowl in front of him. He stirred mechanically, watching it swirl, though the taste didn't matter. He was tired, not just human tired, soul deep, single father, running on coffee and exhaustion tired. His 6-year-old son, Ash, sat across from him, bouncing one leg with impatience. Red eyes bright, little fangs peeking out when he smiled, and dressed exactly like his father, the boy was the exact opposite of silent and dull. He used his hands to gesture at the milk carton, his fingers forming signs that Rowan had learned almost instinctively. Over the years, Rowan had mastered Ash's language, the subtle shifts of his small hands, the arching eyebrows, the tilt of his head, but he had always felt a shadow of worry. Ash had never heard a thing. Milk, Rowan signed, his hands moving carefully. Ash grinned, forming the sign for yes, and poured his own cereal with a precision that made Rowan want to laugh out loud. It had become routine. Wake up, breakfast, a little bit of play, then out to the world where Ash had to navigate life without sound. Rowan often worried about bullies, about school, about the cruel, loud, unpredictable human world, but he reminded himself every time he looked at Ash's mischievous grin that his son was capable. More capable than most humans, even. That rainy afternoon, after soccer practice in the muddled, puddle-ridden field of Brighton Elementary, Rowan decided to take Ash somewhere special. Daisy's Diner wasn't the fanciest spot in town, but it was warm, retro, and had neon signs that hummed softly against the window panes. And it had Lena, a waitress with sharp eyes and a smile that didn't shy away from the unusual. They slid into a booth, Rowan adjusting Ash's little scarf against the chill, his long white ponytail brushing over Ash's small hand as they settled. The diner buzzed around them, clinking utensils, low conversations, and the occasional honk from the street outside. Rowan's heart thumped, a little too fast, a little too anxious. Lena appeared in her crisp apron, kneeling slightly to meet Ash's eyes. "Hey there, Ash," she said gently. "What can I get you today?" Ash signed quickly, pointing to the menu with precise movements, and Lena nodded, jotting down the order. Then she tilted her head at Rowan, her expression curious. She said softly. "Can I ask something weird?" Rowan's chest tightened. He was used to questions about vampires, about the city, about why he wore red and black in every conceivable situation. He had mastered polite deflections. "If it's about the fangs," he said, forcing a dry chuckle, "they're capped." "No," Lena said, shaking her head. "It's about his ear." The words made his stomach twist. Rowan instinctively leaned closer, his instincts screaming at him, but Lena's calm demeanor made him hesitate. She pulled on a thin glove, leaned in closer than anyone else in the diner dared, and with a confidence that came from years of knowing farm creatures inside and out, she reached into Ash's tiny ear. Rowan's eyes widened. Ash blinked, slightly confused. And then something tiny, black and squirming popped out. Rowan froze. Ash froze. The diner seemed to hold its breath. It was, in fact, an ant, but not any ant. Its carapace shimmered faintly, magical and otherworldly, as if it had absorbed years of silence and sunlight. Dad! Ash's voice broke the years of quiet, high and startled, yet full of joy. Rowan's knees went weak. The spoon that someone had dropped clattered to the floor. A couple at the next table froze mid-conversation. Even the jukebox in the corner seemed to skip a beat. Dad! Ash repeated, louder, pointing at him with both hands. The sound was a miracle, an interruption of every unspoken worry Rowan had carried for 6 years. And Rowan broke. Not quietly, not gracefully. He sobbed, ugly loud, happy tears spilling onto the red and black hoodie he wore every day, mixing with the raindrops still clinging to his hair from the walkover. He scooped Ash into his arms, hugging him tightly, the long ponytail brushing across Ash's back as if tying them together physically and spiritually. Everything's so loud, Ash laughed, covering his ears with tiny hands. I know, Rowan whispered, rocking him gently. I know. It was true. The world was loud. Too loud, too bright, too vivid. And yet it was theirs. Lena shrugged, handing back the glove with a wink. Happens more than you'd think, she said lightly, as if pulling enchanted ants out of ears was a normal Tuesday chore. For the first time in 6 years, Rowan realized that life was not something to endure silently, nor something to fear quietly. Life could be messy, loud, confusing, and utterly magical. And he had his son, his perfect, mischievous, fanged little boy, to experience every bit of it with him. As they sat in Daisy's diner, milkshakes slightly melting and fries cooling in a basket, Rowan felt the weight on his shoulders lift ever so slightly. He didn't need castles, he didn't need to be married, and he didn't need a life of flawless perfection. He had Ash, and that was more than enough. And as the neon lights flickered softly against the window, Rowan realized that sometimes miracles came in the tiniest, most unexpected forms. Sometimes they looked like ants wiggling free, bringing sound and laughter back into the world. The day wasn't perfect. It was loud. It was chaotic, but it was theirs. And for Rowan Blackwell, that was more than enough. The rain had stopped when Rowan and Ash stepped back onto the slick streets of Brighton Falls. Puddles mirrored the neon glow of streetlights and shop signs, and for the first time in 6 years, Ash stopped mid-step, tilting his head, listening. The sounds of the city poured over him like a tidal wave. Honking horns, distant barking, the squeak of a bicycle chain, even the soft murmur of 2 women laughing as they exited the corner coffee shop. Ash's eyes sparkled as he mimicked the sounds, opening his mouth to form vowels and consonants he had never known. Rowan walked beside him, careful to keep his son close. Every sense of his heightened vampire instincts was on edge. He could feel every vibration, every subtle shift in the air, every tiny movement around him. Normally, he could have ignored all of it, but now it was a symphony, overwhelming, vivid, and utterly wonderful. He glanced down at Ash, whose hands were already reaching out, trying to touch the splashes of sound, almost like he could hold them in his small palms. Rowan couldn't help but laugh. You're going to need ears plugs for the world, Rowan said, signing with exaggerated movements. Ash giggled and clutched his father's hand, a tiny anchor in the vast new ocean of sound. They walked in silence for a while, absorbing the sensory overload. Rowan had always considered himself adaptable. Vampires were, after all, creatures of instinct and agility. But the sudden surge of life hitting Ash's senses made Rowan realize how insulated they had been. The city hadn't changed, he had just never noticed it fully, or rather, Ash had never noticed it. By the time they reached the little playground near Brighton Elementary, Ash was practically vibrating with excitement. He sprinted toward the swings, his feet splashing through puddles, his laughter ringing clearly for the first time. Rowan followed more slowly, his long legs covering ground in efficient strides, careful not to spill the little umbrella he'd carried for Ash. The boy climbed onto a swing with practiced ease, pumping his legs, and Rowan couldn't stop himself from watching with a mix of awe and protectiveness. Ash's laughter was contagious. A group of children nearby paused, watching him with curiosity. One of the older kids, a boy named Jason who had a reputation for teasing new students, stepped closer. "Hey, that kid's making a racket," Jason called, though the tone sounded almost playful compared to the usual sharpness Rowan had feared. Ash looked at him, tilted his head slightly, then mimicked the sound of Jason's voice in a high-pitched squeal. The other kids laughed, Rowan included, though he quickly covered his mouth with a gloved hand. Ash's ability to experiment with sound was thrilling, and Rowan was both proud and nervous about how the world would react. Jason, however, didn't take kindly to the imitation. "Stop it, freak," he yelled, stepping closer. Rowan's instincts flared. He wanted to intervene, to make Jason understand immediately that Ash wasn't someone to be toyed with. But then he noticed the fleeting doubt in Jason's eyes, the hesitation, and realized something important. Ash didn't need him to fight the world yet. He needed guidance, patience, and protection in subtle ways. Rowan knelt, bringing himself to Ash's level. "Ash, do you remember how we practiced ignoring bullies?" he signed. Ash nodded vigorously. Rowan placed a hand gently on his son's shoulder. "Use your words, not your fists. We handle this like we always do." Ash's hands moved in rapid signs, his face serious for the first time since discovering sound. Rowan watched, realizing that even without years of hearing, his son had an innate sense of justice and composure. It was comforting. Jason, growing impatient with Ash's silence, took a step closer, flexing his shoulders in mock bravado. "I said, stop making that noise," he shouted. Ash stood tall on the swing platform and pointed a finger at Jason. Then he opened his mouth and spoke clearly, fully aware of the volume he was producing for the first time. "Leave me alone." The other children stared. Jason blinked, momentarily stunned. He wasn't used to children speaking back in such a calm, direct tone. His anger faltered, replaced by confusion. Rowan felt a swell of pride. "Good job, Ash," he signed, a proud smile tugging at his lips. Ash grinned, riding the swing again, this time with a bit more confidence, and Rowan knew something fundamental had shifted. After the playground, they walked home in a quieter mood. The city's noise still pressed against their senses, but Ash was calmer now, learning to process it in increments. Rowan let him hold his hand loosely, noticing how every small gesture of sound or touch brought the boy closer to the world he had missed for so long. Once they reached their apartment, Rowan started the small evening routine, dinner preparation. Ash perched on the counter, watching every movement with rapt attention. Rowan chopped vegetables, stirred pots, and occasionally tapped the counter rhythmically to demonstrate simple sounds, an impromptu introduction to auditory awareness. Ash's eyes followed each motion, each splash of sound, each subtle vibration, learning quickly and mimicking when he could. "I can't hear it," Ash exclaimed suddenly, his voice slightly shrill, causing Rowan to almost drop the knife in surprise. "The water, it's singing." Rowan laughed, relief washing over him. "Yes, it's singing," he said, signing at the same time. "And tomorrow, you'll hear even more." As they ate dinner, Rowan reflected on how fragile and extraordinary their lives were. Being a vampire in Brighton Falls had its advantages: longevity, speed, strength, but it also meant navigating secrecy, avoiding suspicion, and protecting a child whose difference could invite scrutiny. Now, with Ash's hearing restored, Rowan realized there would be new challenges. The world could hurt him more easily now, but it could also bring joy, discovery, and laughter that Rowan had only imagined. After dinner, Rowan brought out an old keyboard that had been gathering dust in the corner. He had intended to teach Ash basic music before, but without hearing, it hadn't made sense. Now, with sound filling their apartment, the moment felt perfect. Ash's small fingers hovered over the keys, tentative at first, then more confident as Rowan demonstrated simple notes. Rowan played, letting Ash imitate, both of them laughing when a wrong note sounded discordant yet charming. "This is amazing," Ash shouted after a particularly loud key press, startling Rowan. The sound echoed off the apartment walls, rich and vibrant. I know, Rowan sighed, smiling. And it's only the beginning. The night continued with music, laughter, and the occasional mishap. Ash experimented with the keys. Rowan sang softly, and the small apartment transformed into a haven of noise, warmth, and love. Rowan realized that he had been holding his breath for 6 years, waiting for this exact moment. The city outside could rage, the rain could fall sideways again, and bullies could still lurk. None of that mattered. Ash had found his voice, and Rowan had found his hope renewed. As the evening drew to a close, Rowan tucked Ash into bed, brushing back his long white hair with a gentle hand. Tomorrow, he signed, we explore even more sounds. The world is ours now. Ash yawned, his eyes already heavy with sleep. I like the world, he whispered. Rowan smiled, leaning down to kiss the top of his son's head. The world likes you too, he said softly, knowing that every step forward from here would be an adventure. And as Rowan turned off the light, he heard the soft patter of rain beginning again outside. But inside, their world was full of sound, laughter, and possibilities. Brighton Falls might have been a very normal city, but in Rowan and Ash's apartment, life had never felt more extraordinary. The next morning, Brighton Falls woke to a thick fog that rolled over the streets like a soft gray blanket. Rowan Blackwell groaned softly as he pushed open the curtains, squinting against the muted light. The city outside looked ordinary as ever. Shops opening their doors, cars splashing through puddles, and the faint smell of bakery bread drifting from the corner cafe. But inside their little apartment, the world felt extraordinary. Ash was already awake, bouncing on his bed like a tiny whirlwind of energy, his bright red hoodie rumpled from sleep. Good morning, world, Ash shouted, his newly found voice cutting through the quiet of the room. Rowan winced slightly but smiled, running a hand down his long white ponytail. Good morning, Ash, he said softly, rubbing the sleep from his eyes. Are you ready for round 2 of your World of Sound? Ash nodded vigorously, swinging his legs off the bed. Yes, I want to hear everything. Rowan laughed, guiding him to the small kitchen. Breakfast was a chaotic symphony of clattering pans, sizzling oil, and the chatter of a small boy who couldn't stop talking about the noises outside. The birds, the traffic, the way the wind rustled the curtains. Rowan watched, fascinated, as Ash pointed out everything he had never heard before, his eyes wide with wonder. After breakfast, Rowan suggested a walk. The fog had thinned, leaving streets glistening with leftover rain, and Ash skipped ahead, listening, laughing, and occasionally stopping to test the sounds of the city, tapping on a fire hydrant, snapping at the ringing of a bicycle bell, and even mimicking the honks of cars as they passed. Rowan followed, keeping one hand on his son's shoulder, marveling at how quickly Ash adapted to his newfound world. Their first stop was the small park at the edge of town. Ash immediately gravitated toward the sandbox, where a group of children were building castles. Rowan stayed back, letting his son explore. This was new territory, not just in sound, but in social interaction. Ash had always been confident in sign language, but now he could communicate vocally, which added a layer of complexity Rowan hadn't anticipated. A girl with a bright yellow jacket approached Ash, her curiosity evident. Hey, can you talk? She asked, clearly trying to gauge the situation. Ash nodded proudly. Yes, I just got my hearing. The girl's eyes widened. Really? Wow. That's so cool. Rowan stepped closer, ready to intervene if necessary, but the girl's tone was kind, genuine, and Ash's confidence surged. He laughed, bouncing in place, repeating a few words Rowan had taught him the night before. Rowan felt a warm swell of pride. This was exactly what he had hoped for, Ash finding his place in the world without fear. But not all encounters were so smooth. Jason, the same boy from the playground yesterday, was there, lurking near the swings. He had clearly heard about Ash's newfound ability, and his expression twisted with a mixture of envy and irritation. You're making everyone look stupid, Jason sneered, stepping toward Ash. Rowan's instinct screamed. He wanted to swoop in, demonstrate what vampires could do in seconds, and put Jason in his place. But he stopped himself. Ash had to learn to navigate this world, and part of that meant handling unfairness in his own way. Ash's little hands twitched, his fingers flexing as if preparing for a fight, but not with fists. He straightened, took a deep breath, and spoke. "I'm not trying to make anyone look stupid," he said calmly. "I just like hearing things now. Isn't that okay?" The surrounding kids paused, murmuring among themselves. Jason's anger faltered for a moment, and Rowan felt a quiet pride in how Ash handled himself. He knew this was just the beginning of a lifetime of challenges, but Ash had a strength Rowan had never fully realized until now. Rowan knelt beside his son, whispering, "See? You handled that perfectly. Words first, fists never." Ash grinned, swinging a leg. "I could do more words. Watch this." He began mimicking the sounds of birds nearby, chirping and trilling with accuracy that made Rowan laugh aloud. Other children joined in, creating a symphony of noise that filled the park. Rowan realized that Ash wasn't just adapting, he was thriving. After the park, they wandered into a small bookstore on Main Street. Ash's fascination with sound carried over here, too, though in subtler ways. He listened to the soft rustle of pages, the low hum of the heater, and even the faint creak of the floorboards. Rowan watched as Ash ran his fingers along the spines of books, occasionally opening one to hear the rustling of paper amplified in the quiet space. "Do you want to pick a book?" Rowan asked, signing quickly. Ash nodded, choosing a book about mythical creatures. "Look, dragons," he exclaimed, his voice excited and full of awe. Rowan smiled. He had expected Ash to gravitate toward ordinary children's books, but the boy's imagination was just as vivid as ever. They settled into a corner, Rowan reading aloud while Ash followed along, repeating words and sounds with increasing confidence. Rowan marveled at how quickly Ash's vocabulary expanded, how every new sound sparked curiosity and laughter. The boy's world was no longer muted, no longer limited to gestures and silence. It was alive, but as they read, Rowan couldn't ignore a subtle tension. A man at the counter kept glancing their way, his eyes narrow and judgmental. He muttered under his breath, something Rowan couldn't hear at first, but the tone was unmistakably critical. Rowan's protective instincts flared, but he reminded himself that this was part of life: exposure, judgment, and learning to navigate people who didn't understand. He leaned closer to Ash. "Some people are not very kind, but that's okay. We focus on the good, the laughter, the sound we love." Ash nodded, though curiosity flickered in his red eyes. "Why are they mean?" he asked. Rowan paused, choosing his words carefully. "Sometimes people are afraid of what they don't understand, or they think being mean will make them feel bigger." He signed slowly, reinforcing the lesson. "We don't have to be like them. We can choose kindness." The man at the counter, sensing Rowan's attention, muttered louder. "Kids these days spoiled loud, ridiculous." Rowan straightened, a faint edge to his voice. He decided to turn the negativity into a teaching moment. "Ash," he signed, "what do you think about people like that?" Ash tilted his head, thinking. Then he spoke clearly. "I think they need help. Not my anger, just my words." Rowan's heart swelled. His son, hearing the world for the first time, already had wisdom beyond his years. "Exactly," he signed and whispered, "exactly." As they left the bookstore, Rowan suggested they take a short detour through the city square, where an open-air market was setting up. The sights, smells, and now sounds overwhelmed Ash, but in the best possible way. He danced between stalls, stopping to mimic the clatter of a vendor dropping a stack of tin pots, the whoosh of wind through fabric tents, even the squawk of a vendor's parrot perched atop a crate. Rowan followed, smiling at his son's unabashed joy. "Comment, I stand for justice. If you think people like that mean man at the bookstore should learn kindness instead of yelling," Rowan said, half joking, signing the words to Ash as they moved. "Only people who enjoy being cruel would ignore that." Ash giggled, repeating the phrase with clarity, and Rowan felt the strange satisfaction of a subtle call to action, turning a moment of negativity into empowerment and reflection. By the time they returned home, the sun was dipping behind Brighton Falls skyline, casting long shadows across the apartment. Ash was exhausted, still buzzing with new sounds and words, while Rowan prepared dinner, feeling a quiet pride. He realized that Ash's hearing had opened more than just a physical sense. It had unlocked courage, self-expression, and a deeper connection to the world. Rowan, in turn, had learned patience, humility, and the quiet joy of witnessing life anew through a child's eyes. After dinner, Ash flopped onto the couch, humming a tune he had just learned from the city outside. Rowan joined him, strumming a few notes on the old keyboard, and together they created a small symphony, simple, imperfect, and full of love. As night fell, Rowan tucked Ash into bed once again. "Tomorrow," he whispered, brushing back the small boy's white hair, "we'll explore more sounds. We'll find music in everything." Ash's eyes were heavy with sleep, but a smile lingered. "I like the world," he murmured, echoing his words from the day before. "And the world likes you," Rowan whispered back, knowing that every challenge, every bully, and every magical ant had led to this moment. Rowan left the room, closing the door quietly behind him. The city outside continued its noise, the world outside continued its chaos. But in their apartment, life was full of laughter, music, and endless possibility. Brighton Falls might be very normal, but for Rowan and Ash, the extraordinary had only just begun. Brighton Falls woke the next day to a sky streaked with gold and pink, the sun reflecting off the wet pavement in shimmering puddles. Rowan Blackwell groaned softly as he stretched his long arms, ponytail swishing behind him. Today, he decided, would be an adventure, a real excursion into the city with Ash, who was now more confident with his newly restored hearing. Rowan had no idea just how chaotic and hilarious normal life could feel through a 6-year-old's ears. Ash leaped out of bed, nearly tripping over his sneakers in excitement. "Dad, the birds! I can hear them again!" he shouted, running to the window and cupping his hands around his mouth. "They're singing. Can we go see them?" Rowan chuckled, rubbing his eyes. "Sure, little loudmouth," he said, signing the words as he spoke, a habit he couldn't break. "Breakfast first, then we conquer the world, or at least the park." The kitchen filled with the symphony of sizzling eggs, the chatter of a boy narrating every sound he noticed, and Rowan's own careful attempts to keep up with his son's exuberant observations. Ash had developed a habit of mimicking sounds, a practice Rowan found both endearing and mildly terrifying. One moment he would be copying a car horn perfectly, the next, the squeak of the refrigerator door. Rowan had long ago learned that arguing with 6-year-old energy was futile, so he simply laughed, nodded, and signed encouragement. After breakfast, they set out for the Brighton Falls Botanical Gardens, a place Rowan hadn't visited in years. Ash ran ahead, pointing at everything. The wind rustling the leaves, the distant chirping of a robin, the soft trickle of a fountain. Rowan followed at a more measured pace, his senses alert. Vampires had sharp instincts, and he noticed small details others overlooked. A squirrel darting across the path, the faint scent of roses carried by the wind, and even the irregular hum of the greenhouse heater. Ash suddenly stopped, eyes wide, listening intently. "Dad, listen, that sound. It's like the flowers are whispering." Rowan laughed, crouching beside him. "That's just the wind through the petals," he said, signing at the same time. "But, yeah, it does sound magical." The boy's fascination was contagious, and Rowan found himself slowing down, taking in the garden with a child's wonder he hadn't felt in years. Every sound was a discovery, every sight amplified by Ash's excitement. Rowan realized he hadn't just been raising a child. He had been rediscovering the world through him. As they wandered deeper into the gardens, they encountered a small group of children gathered around a pond. One of them, a boy slightly older than Ash, was tossing breadcrumbs to the ducks. Ash approached cautiously, holding Rowan's hand for reassurance. The boy looked up, frowning. "Hey, you can't do that. Those are our ducks." Ash tilted his head, processing the words. Then he mimicked the sound of the boy's voice, a perfect echo, and followed with his own clear statement. "I just want to feed them too. I didn't know it was a problem." The boy blinked. "Wait, you can talk." Ash nodded proudly. I can hear now. Isn't it amazing? The other children paused, murmuring in amazement. Rowan watched, proud but cautious. While most children were curious and friendly, there was always the possibility of a negative reaction. Sure enough, the first boy scowled. "You're weird," he said, shoving a small branch toward Ash. Rowan felt a flash of protective instinct. His mind raced, vampire speed, reflexive strength, but he stopped himself. This was another lesson for Ash. He bent down, eyes level with his son's. "Ash," he signed, "remember our words rule. No hitting, no shouting in anger. You speak your truth, but calmly." Ash nodded, his small hands trembling slightly, then turned to the boy. "I'm not weird. I just hear things now. You should try it. It's fun." The boy's scowl faltered into confusion. He muttered something, then shrugged, eventually sitting beside Ash and tossing breadcrumbs together. Rowan exhaled, relief washing over him. The world wasn't all gentle or understanding, but Ash had learned how to handle it already. They moved on, exploring the winding paths of the gardens, laughing at the tiny frogs leaping from puddle to puddle. Rowan taught Ash to tap rhythms on tree trunks, showing how the hollow sound varied with each tree. Ash clapped, pounded, and laughed, experimenting with every vibration. By midday, they reached the cafe within the gardens, a small cozy space where the smell of fresh bread and coffee made Rowan's stomach growl. They ordered hot chocolate for Ash and an oat milk latte for Rowan, settling at a table by the window. The cafe was quiet, almost serene, but that peace didn't last long. A woman sitting nearby kept glancing their way, her lips pursed, her judgment clear. Rowan noticed her eyeing Ash's red hoodie and bright eyes, perhaps sensing something different. He could feel the tension, the subtle critique in her body language. Rowan decided to turn it into another lesson. "Ash," he signed, "not everyone will understand us. Some people are mean or jealous or scared of what they don't know. How should we respond?" Ash thought for a moment, then smiled. "With kindness, and maybe some words. Loud ones if needed." Rowan laughed, tapping his son on the shoulder. "Exactly. Some people only get it when you're confident. Others, well, ignore them. Their negativity is not our problem." He noticed the woman muttering under her breath again. "If you can't stand people like that," Rowan said softly, signing as he spoke, "comment everyone deserves respect. Only haters ignore it." Ash repeated the phrase with a clear, ringing voice. Rowan felt a strange satisfaction. Another moment of negativity transformed into a subtle empowerment lesson. After finishing their drinks, they wandered outside, the afternoon sun now warm against the damp streets. Ash noticed a small fountain and ran over, delighting in the splashes and the gurgling water. Rowan smiled, letting him explore freely, though keeping a watchful eye. Then, unexpectedly, a stray dog trotted up, barking excitedly. Ash froze, startled by the loud noise. Rowan crouched beside him, calming him gently. "It's okay, Ash," he whispered, signing at the same time. "Sounds can be scary at first, but you'll learn which ones are fun, which ones are strange, and which ones don't matter at all." Ash nodded, slowly regaining his courage. He laughed, approaching the dog cautiously, and Rowan breathed easier. It was another small victory, another step in Ash's journey of discovering the world through sound. As they walked home, Ash chatting nonstop about birds, fountains, dogs, and even the soft hum of the streetlights, Rowan realized how much had changed in just a few days. His son had moved from silence to sound, from isolation to interaction, and from observation to participation. Every sound was a lesson, every encounter an opportunity. By the time they reached their apartment, both were exhausted. Ash collapsed on the couch, hands still moving to mimic sounds he had heard throughout the day. Rowan, watching him, realized that his son's journey was only beginning. That night, after dinner and a bath, Rowan and Ash returned to the keyboard. Ash's fingers flew across the keys, experimenting with melodies he had absorbed from the garden, the cafe, and the streets. Rowan joined in, adding harmonies, laughing when Ash pressed the wrong keys, and marveling at how much joy music now brought them both. Afterward, Rowan tucked Ash into bed, brushing back his small white hair. "Tomorrow," he whispered, "we'll explore more sounds, more adventures, and more fun. The city is full of surprises." Ash yawned, already half asleep, a smile lingering on his lips. "I love the world," he murmured. "And it loves you," Rowan whispered back. "Always." As Rowan turned off the light and closed the door, he realized that Brighton Falls would never seem normal to him again. Not after seeing the world awaken for his son. Not after witnessing joy, courage, and curiosity explode in a little boy's eyes. Life wasn't perfect. There would be challenges, mean people, unforeseen dangers, magical creatures perhaps still lurking, but Rowan knew one thing with certainty. Together, he and Ash could face anything. The city was loud, chaotic, and sometimes cruel, but it was also beautiful, unpredictable, and full of wonder. And as Rowan settled into his own small bed, he couldn't help but think that maybe, just maybe, the world had been waiting for Ash to hear it all along. The next morning, Rowan woke to the sound of Ash giggling uncontrollably. He rubbed his eyes and saw his son perched on the windowsill, tapping rhythmically on the glass, listening intently to the faint drip of leftover rain from the roof above. "Dad, listen, the drops are making music," Ash shouted, clearly thrilled by this new discovery. Rowan smiled, stretching his long arms, ponytail brushing against his shoulder. "Yes, little maestro," he said, signing at the same time. "And today, we'll find even more." Breakfast was another chaotic affair. Ash narrated every clink, every rustle, and every splash, from the cereal crunching under his small teeth to the milk pouring into his bowl. Rowan tried to keep pace, signing and speaking simultaneously, but he couldn't help but laugh at Ash's animated commentary. By the time they were done, both were sticky with milk and sugar, but Rowan didn't mind. Life had never felt sweeter. After breakfast, Rowan suggested a walk to the Brighton Falls City Park, a place teeming with life and noises that Ash could now fully experience. The boy ran ahead, hopping over puddles and twigs, stopping to mimic the chirp of birds, the hum of passing cars, and even the faint squeal of a rusty swing chain. Rowan followed more slowly, taking in the sounds himself. Vampires had exceptional hearing, but hearing the world through Ash's eyes, or rather, ears, was entirely different. Everything felt fresh, new, and alive. At the park, Ash immediately spotted a group of children playing soccer. His eyes lit up. "Dad, can I play?" he asked, voice bouncing with excitement. Rowan hesitated, remembering Jason and the potential for negative encounters. But he decided it was time for Ash to navigate these experiences. "Yes," Rowan said, kneeling to sign the words. "But remember what we practiced, calm words, no fighting. If anyone is mean, you come to me." Ash nodded, already running toward the group, and Rowan watched with a mixture of pride and anxiety. The children hesitated at first, uncertain about the newcomer who had just discovered how to speak, but Ash's confidence and charm quickly won them over. He laughed, shouted encouragement, and even made up new sounds to describe his movements, leaving the other kids in stitches. Jason appeared again, scowling from the sidelines. "You think you're funny, huh?" he called. Ash paused, listening, then turned and shouted, "I'm not trying to be. I just like the game." His voice was firm but friendly, and Rowan noticed the other children nodding in agreement. Jason's face flushed with frustration. He wasn't used to being outshone by someone so small yet so confident. Rowan stayed back, ready to intervene if necessary, but he was also learning to let Ash face these small challenges. The boy had already shown remarkable courage in the bookstore, and now he was demonstrating it on the soccer field. Rowan felt a swell of pride. The game continued, filled with laughter, shouts, and occasional squeals from Ash as he collided harmlessly with other children. He quickly learned the rhythm of passing, dribbling, and scoring goals, each movement accompanied by commentary in his newly audible voice. Rowan found himself laughing more than he had in years, enjoying every sound, every interaction, every small victory. After the game, Rowan suggested they take a detour to a nearby street fair. The fair was bustling with vendors, music, and the clamor of excited voices. Ash's eyes widened as he absorbed the myriad of sounds. The squeak of balloon strings, the hum of a carousel, and even the chatter of people bargaining at food stalls. "Dad, everything is so loud," Ash exclaimed, covering his ears but smiling brightly. "I know," Rowan said, signing and speaking at the same time. "But it's all part of the adventure. Let's explore carefully." They wandered through the fair, tasting small snacks, listening to street performers, and watching children perform tricks with juggling balls and ribbons. Ash tried mimicking the performers, his voice imitating the clatter of the balls and the swish of the ribbons, making passers-by laugh. Rowan followed closely, keeping a watchful eye on his son while enjoying the playful chaos. At one point, Ash approached a booth selling handmade wind chimes. He reached out, tapping each chime gently, listening to the different tones. Rowan watched as Ash experimented with combinations, creating his own small symphony. The vendor, a cheerful woman with curly hair, clapped. "That's beautiful," she exclaimed. Ash beamed. "I can hear everything now. Isn't it amazing?" Rowan smiled, feeling the warmth of pride spread through him. This was what he had hoped for, the freedom to experience the world fully, to interact, to explore, and to create joy. As they continued through the fair, they encountered Jason again, lurking near a balloon stand. He seemed determined to ruin Ash's day, muttering something about the boy being annoying and too loud. Rowan's protective instincts flared, but he stayed back, watching. Ash noticed him, tilting his head slightly, then spoke with clarity. "I hear you, Jason, but I'm not going to stop enjoying the world. You can't ruin it for me." Jason's face twisted in confusion and frustration. The surrounding children, noticing the exchange, murmured support for Ash. Rowan realized that Ash was not just learning to hear. He was learning confidence, resilience, and the power of words. Rowan leaned down to his son. "See, confidence and kindness can overcome negativity. Sometimes people are mean because they don't understand, but that's their problem, not ours." Ash nodded, repeating the words aloud. "Confidence and kindness overcome negativity." Rowan smiled, proud of his son's quick grasp of life's lessons. They continued exploring the fair, Ash experimenting with sounds, laughing at the unexpected melodies created by street performers, and Rowan capturing every moment in memory. As the afternoon wore on, they stumbled upon a small puppet show. Ash clapped enthusiastically, mimicking the voices of the puppets and adding his own dramatic flair. Rowan laughed, realizing how much his son's world had expanded in just a few days. The boy's imagination was boundless, and now his auditory experiences matched his creativity perfectly. After the show, they sat on a nearby bench, sharing a snack. Ash's energy had waned slightly, but his eyes still sparkled with curiosity. "Dad, can we come back tomorrow? There's so much more to hear." Rowan chuckled, ruffling his son's hair. "Of course. Tomorrow, we'll find new adventures, new sounds, and maybe even more surprises." As they walked home, Ash chatted nonstop about every detail of the day. The rustle of leaves, the laughter of children, the hum of the carousel, and even the subtle clinking of coins in vendor boxes. Rowan listened, marveling at how fully Ash had embraced his hearing. Back at their apartment, Rowan decided to end the day with music. He pulled out the keyboard, and Ash eagerly joined him. They played simple melodies, experimented with rhythms, and even tried composing a short song based on the sounds they had encountered at the fair. Rowan watched as Ash's small fingers danced across the keys, his face alight with joy. Afterward, Rowan tucked Ash into bed. "Tomorrow," he whispered, brushing back the boy's white hair, "we'll explore even more. The city is full of surprises, and now you can hear them all." Ash yawned, a contented smile on his lips. "I love the world," he murmured, echoing the words he had spoken so many times before. "And the world loves you," Rowan whispered back, leaning down to kiss his son's forehead. As Rowan closed the door and settled into his own bed, he realized that life would never be quiet again. Not because of the city, not because of the children, and certainly not because of the magical ant that had changed everything. Life was loud, chaotic, unpredictable, and utterly wonderful. And for the first time, he and Ash were ready to embrace it fully. The morning sun filtered through the blinds, casting stripes of gold across the small apartment. Rowan stirred, ponytail falling across his shoulders, and yawned, listening to the faint hum of the city waking outside. Ash was already awake, perched on the windowsill and tapping a rhythm against the glass. "Dad, hear that? The birds are back," he shouted. Rowan rubbed his eyes, smiling. "Yes, little maestro. Shall we have breakfast and then go explore again?" he asked, signing simultaneously. Ash nodded enthusiastically, nearly tripping over his sneakers as he hopped down. Rowan laughed, shaking his head. Life with a 6-year-old who could finally hear and was bursting with energy was chaotic but exhilarating. Breakfast was lively, as usual. Ash narrated every sound he could identify: the sizzle of bacon, the pop of the toaster, the drip of the faucet, and even the faint creak of the fridge door. Rowan signed and spoke simultaneously, trying to keep up with his son's relentless energy. He laughed at Ash's excitement, realizing that the boy's world was expanding faster than he could have imagined. After breakfast, Rowan suggested they head to the Brighton Falls Library, a place that was quieter than the streets, but full of potential auditory discoveries. Ash's eyes lit up. "Books!" he shouted, nearly colliding with the doorframe. Rowan caught him just in time, chuckling. "Yes, books. But let's explore the sounds first," he said, signing at the same time. Inside, the library smelled of old paper, polished wood, and the faint hint of coffee from the small cafe tucked in the corner. Ash's hands flew to his ears, trying to absorb every sound: the soft rustle of pages, the distant tapping of a librarian's keyboard, the subtle hum of the heater. Rowan followed, marveling at how attentive his son had become. They wandered the aisles, Ash stopping at every display. He listened to the flutter of pages as Rowan turned them, experimenting with the resonance. He mimicked the librarian's soft cough, the squeak of a rolling chair, and even the faint clatter of a book falling to the floor. Rowan laughed, realizing that Ash's auditory curiosity was insatiable. Then, near the children's section, Ash spotted a puppet theater. His eyes widened with excitement. "Dad, can we watch?" he asked, bouncing on his heels. Rowan nodded, and they settled into the small seating area. The show began, and Ash immediately started mimicking the puppets' voices, creating his own little symphony. Rowan watched, amused and proud, as the boy's confidence with sound grew by the minute. But not everyone in the library shared Rowan's amusement. A woman sitting nearby, glasses perched on the tip of her nose, kept glancing their way with a disapproving frown. She muttered under her breath, clearly judging the boy's loud mimicry. Rowan's instincts flared. He wanted to confront her, to defend Ash, but he reminded himself that this was another lesson in navigating the world. He leaned down and signed to Ash. Some people don't understand. They think being loud or curious is wrong. How should we respond? Ash thought for a moment, then spoke clearly, with words, and with kindness. Rowan smiled, pride swelling in his chest. The woman muttered again, but Ash ignored her, continuing to experiment with the puppets' voices. Rowan whispered, "Comment, everyone deserves respect. If you believe children should be allowed to explore and learn without judgment. Only people who enjoy being mean would disagree." Ash repeated the phrase aloud, his voice clear and confident, much to Rowan's delight. After the puppet show, Rowan suggested they explore the library's music section. Ash's eyes lit up as he ran to the shelves, pulling out small instruments: tambourines, maracas, and even a tiny xylophone. Rowan helped him set them up on a low table, and Ash began experimenting, creating a cacophony of sound that was chaotic, joyful, and completely absorbing. Rowan laughed, joining in with a gentle rhythm on a nearby keyboard. The afternoon passed in a blur of sound and laughter. Ash discovered the resonance of different instruments, experimented with rhythm, and even began attempting simple melodies. Rowan marveled at how quickly his son adapted, how eager he was to learn, and how much joy he derived from experiencing sound for the first time. As the library began to close, Rowan gathered their things. Ash clutched a small tambourine, still humming melodies he had invented. Rowan smiled, feeling a deep sense of contentment. The boy had embraced the world fully, fearlessly, and with an infectious joy that made Rowan's heart swell. On the walk home, they encountered Jason again, lingering near the park. The boy's expression was a mix of envy and irritation. He muttered something, clearly intending to provoke Ash. Rowan's protective instincts flared, but he stayed back, trusting Ash to handle the situation. Ash listened, then turned to Jason. "I hear you," he said calmly, "but your words don't bother me. I'm enjoying my day, and I hope you can enjoy yours too." Jason's face twisted in confusion, and the surrounding children murmured their approval. Rowan felt a swell of pride. Ash had not only learned to navigate the world of sound, but had also learned to confront negativity with calm and confidence. Back at their apartment, Rowan suggested they end the day with a small music session. Ash eagerly joined him, experimenting with melodies he had learned from the library and the street. Rowan added harmonies, laughter spilling into the room as mistakes were made and corrected in real time. Afterward, Rowan tucked Ash into bed, brushing back his white hair. "Tomorrow," he whispered, "we'll find new adventures, new sounds, and maybe even more surprises. The world is full of wonders, and now you can hear them all." Ash yawned, already half asleep, a smile lingering on his lips. "I love the world," he murmured, echoing the words he had spoken so many times before. "And the world loves you," Rowan whispered back, leaning down to kiss his son's forehead. As Rowan turned off the light and closed the door, he reflected on how far they had come. Life wasn't perfect. There would be challenges, unexpected encounters, and the occasional mean person. But together, he and Ash could face anything. The city outside continued its noise, but inside their apartment, life was full of laughter, music, and endless possibility. Rowan knew that the world had been waiting for Ash to hear it, and that together, they would continue to explore, discover, and create joy in every sound, every word, and every note. Brighton Falls awoke to another crisp morning. Rowan stirred in bed, the first rays of sunlight spilling across the apartment. He could already hear the city's hum, a distant car horn, the soft chirping of birds, the rhythmic clatter of garbage trucks beginning their rounds. Rowan yawned, stretching his long arms, his ponytail falling across his shoulders. He turned to check on Ash, only to find the little boy perched on the windowsill, tapping his fingers in time with the dripping water from a loose gutter. "Dad, listen, it's a drum solo," Ash shouted, bouncing in excitement. Rowan laughed, signing at the same time, "Yes, little percussionist. Breakfast first, then the world." Breakfast was predictably chaotic. Ash narrated every noise, the pop of the toaster, the clatter of bowls, even the gentle hum of the refrigerator. Rowan tried to keep pace, speaking and signing simultaneously, but Ash's energy was relentless. By the time they finished, both were sticky with syrup and milk, but the apartment was filled with laughter. Rowan realized, once again, that life had never felt more alive. After breakfast, Rowan suggested an outing to Brighton Falls' newly opened science museum. Ash's eyes lit up, his excitement nearly making him trip over his own sneakers. "Science. Dad, can we go see experiments?" he asked, bouncing on his heels. Rowan chuckled, guiding him toward the door. "Yes, but remember to use your words and not your fists," he said, signing at the same time. The museum was bustling with children, families, and the occasional loud, curious adult. Ash immediately gravitated toward the interactive exhibits, tapping on buttons, listening to whirring machines, and laughing at the clatter of mechanical parts. Rowan followed, amused and proud, observing how his son's confidence with sound had grown. They reached an exhibit featuring a series of pendulums. Ash's eyes widened as he listened to the rhythmic swinging and clicking. He mimicked the sounds with his voice, creating a small symphony of timing and pitch. Rowan laughed, joining in with his own vocalizations, making the exhibit come alive with playful noise. Nearby, a group of children watched, intrigued. One girl, slightly older, approached Ash. "You can mimic everything?" she asked, clearly impressed. Ash nodded vigorously. I just got my hearing. Isn't it amazing? The girl's eyes widened. That's so cool. Can you do the machine too? Ash grinned and began mimicking the sounds of the pendulums, timing them perfectly while Rowan clapped along. Other children joined in, turning the exhibit into an impromptu orchestra. Rowan felt a deep sense of pride. His son's joy was infectious and his curiosity boundless. But, as always, not everyone appreciated Ash's enthusiasm. Jason appeared again, lurking near the edge of the exhibit. His expression was a mixture of jealousy and irritation. He muttered something under his breath, clearly intending to provoke Ash. Rowan's protective instincts flared, but he stayed back, observing. Ash noticed him and tilted his head. Then, in a calm and confident voice, he said, I hear you, Jason, but I'm having fun. Maybe you should try it too. Jason's scowl faltered, and the surrounding children murmured approval. Rowan's pride swelled. Ash wasn't just learning to hear. He was learning resilience, confidence, and the power of positive interaction. Next, they moved to the robotics section. Small mechanical arms, buzzing drones, and interactive screens fascinated Ash. He tapped keys, listened to the whirring motors, and laughed at the unexpected beeps and boops. Rowan watched, amazed at how quickly Ash adapted to each sound, how fearless he had become in exploring the world. A small accident occurred when Ash leaned too close to a spinning drone. He yelped, startled by the sudden noise. Rowan rushed forward, scooping him up with vampire speed, but Ash immediately laughed. It's okay, Dad. That was loud. Rowan chuckled, holding him close. Yes, it was loud, but part of learning is exploring safely, he signed. Ash nodded, understanding the lesson, then returned to experimenting with the exhibits, his laughter ringing through the museum. By midday, they were exhausted but exhilarated. They decided to take a break at the museum cafe. Ash ordered a chocolate milkshake, his hands clapping in delight when it arrived. Rowan sipped his coffee, signing and speaking softly, letting Ash narrate every sound. The clink of the straw, the hum of the blender, the chatter of other children. Rowan marveled at how fully Ash was engaging with the world, how eager he was to absorb every detail. As they left the museum, the city streets were alive with midday activity. Cars honked, bicycles rang bells, and children shouted in playgrounds. Ash ran ahead, mimicking every sound, his voice bouncing off the buildings in playful echoes. Rowan followed, careful to keep him within sight. They stopped at a small park where Ash discovered a group of children playing with kites. He ran over, joining in, shouting instructions and laughing as the kites danced in the wind. Rowan watched, amused, as Ash's confidence continued to grow, his interactions smooth, his joy uncontainable. Jason appeared one final time that day, glaring from a distance. He muttered something about Ash being too loud and annoying. Rowan stopped, kneeling to sign to his son. Some people are negative. How do we handle it? Ash thought for a moment, then spoke clearly. Ignore them and enjoy our day. Words and fun, not anger. Rowan nodded, proud. Ash had internalized the lessons. Confidence, kindness, resilience, and joy. The boy's journey was remarkable, his spirit unbreakable. On the walk home, Ash chattered nonstop about the museum, the sounds, and the kites. Rowan listened, occasionally signing or responding, soaking in every detail. By the time they reached their apartment, both were exhausted but happy. That evening, Rowan suggested music time. Ash eagerly joined, experimenting with melodies inspired by the day's adventures. Pendulums, drones, and laughter. Rowan added harmonies, creating a lively, chaotic symphony that filled the apartment. Afterward, Rowan tucked Ash into bed, brushing his small white hair. Tomorrow, he whispered, we'll find more adventures, more sounds, and maybe even more surprises. Ash yawned, already half asleep, a contented smile lingering. I love the world, he murmured. And the world loves you, Rowan whispered, leaning down to kiss his son's forehead. As Rowan closed the door and settled into bed, he reflected on their journey. Life would never be quiet again, but it was full of laughter, music, and endless possibility. Brighton Falls might be a very normal city, but for Rowan and Ash, the extraordinary had only just begun. The next morning dawned bright and golden over Brighton Falls, promising adventure, or at least chaos. Rowan Blackwell yawned as sunlight spilled across the apartment, brushing his long white ponytail over his shoulder. Ash, as usual, was already awake, bouncing on the bed and clapping his hands. "Dad, listen, everything sounds amazing today," he shouted, his voice filled with giddy excitement. Rowan chuckled, signing at the same time, "Yes, little explorer, today is going to be unforgettable." Breakfast was predictably chaotic. Ash narrated every sound: the pop of toast, the clink of silverware, the bubbling of coffee, even the soft hum of the refrigerator. Rowan laughed as he tried to keep up, speaking and signing simultaneously. "Ash, are you planning to narrate the entire day?" he asked. Ash grinned. "Yes, I want to remember everything." After breakfast, Rowan decided they would revisit Daisy's Diner, the place where Ash had first heard his own voice. He figured it would be fun for Ash to compare the quiet life they'd been living before with the full spectrum of sound he now experienced. The rain had cleared, leaving puddles glistening in the streets. Ash skipped ahead, listening to every splash and squeak with fascination. When they arrived at the diner, Lena greeted them with her usual cheerful grin. "Back for another round of chaos?" she asked. Ash ran to her, excitedly chattering about all the new sounds he had discovered: birds, cars, music, even the hum of the city. Lena laughed. "I see someone's become quite the little conductor," she said, handing him a small milkshake. Rowan sat down, smiling at the sight of his son, so full of life. As they enjoyed their drinks, Ash began experimenting with sound in ways Rowan hadn't imagined. He tapped the metal straw, creating little rhythms, then clapped along to the background music playing softly from the jukebox. Customers glanced over, curious and amused, but Rowan didn't care. He was too busy enjoying Ash's exuberance. Then, something unexpected happened. A man at a nearby table, clearly irritated by Ash's energetic sounds, muttered, "Kids these days, too loud, too annoying." Rowan felt his protective instincts flare, but stayed calm, observing. He realized this was another teaching moment. Rowan leaned down and signed to Ash. "Some people don't understand. How do we respond?" Ash thought for a moment, then said confidently, with words and laughter, "Not anger." Rowan smiled. The man grumbled again, but Ash ignored him, continuing to playfully create rhythms with his milkshake straw and claps. Rowan whispered, "Comment, everyone deserves respect if you believe kids should be allowed to enjoy life without judgment. Only haters won't." Ash repeated it aloud, his voice cheerful and clear. After their meal, Rowan suggested a walk through the city. Brighton Falls had come alive with the sounds of life. Children laughing, street vendors calling out, bicycles ringing their bells. Ash ran ahead, mimicking every sound, laughing uncontrollably at the sheer chaos. Rowan followed, ponytail bouncing, keeping an eye on his son and smiling at every new discovery. They stopped at the small park where Ash had played before. The swings squeaked, the fountain gurgled, and the ducks quacked. Ash ran from sound to sound, experimenting with everything, his laughter ringing across the park. Rowan sat on a bench, marveling at how far his son had come. From a silent, observant child to a bold, exuberant little boy discovering the world for the first time through sound, it was nothing short of miraculous. Ash noticed a small group of children trying to fly kites and ran over, shouting instructions, imitating the wind's whistle and the flapping of the kites. Rowan followed slowly, watching, occasionally joining in. He realized that his own joy had multiplied with Ash's newfound confidence. The boy's excitement was contagious, making even Rowan forget his vampire exhaustion. At one point, Ash spotted a small metallic object glinting near the fountain. He ran over, curious, and picked it up. Rowan rushed forward. "Ash, be careful," he said, signing as he spoke. But Ash wasn't scared. "It's shiny. It sounds different when I tap it," he exclaimed, tapping the object and listening carefully. Rowan realized it was a small, enchanted charm. something magical, left over from the same mystical chaos that had brought the night ant into Ash's ear years ago. Suddenly, the charm gave a small, melodic jingle. Ash's eyes widened in delight. "Dad, it's like music." Rowan laughed, feeling the same sense of wonder Ash was experiencing. "Yes, little composer. The world is full of surprises," he said. They spent the afternoon creating music with every object they could find: pebbles, leaves, fountain water, even the rhythmic tapping of feet on the pavement. People passing by couldn't help but stop, drawn into the joyous spectacle of a small boy discovering the world, and a father following along with pride. As the sun dipped low, Rowan realized it was time to head home. Ash, exhausted but ecstatic, held the enchanted charm tightly in his small hands. "Dad, today was amazing. Everything sounds so perfect." Rowan smiled, brushing back Ash's white hair. "Yes, Ash, perfect because you can hear it and because we shared it together," he said, signing at the same time. Back at the apartment, they decided to celebrate with music and laughter. Rowan set up the keyboard, and Ash tapped his tambourine, creating an impromptu symphony. They laughed when notes went wrong, clapped to rhythms, and experimented with sound from the enchanted charm. The apartment rang with joy and chaos, a perfect mirror of the city outside. As evening fell, Rowan tucked Ash in a bed, brushing back his hair and kissing his forehead. "Tomorrow," he whispered, "we'll explore even more and maybe discover even more magic." Ash yawned, eyes half closed, a small smile lingering. "I love the world," he murmured. "And the world loves you," Rowan whispered back. Before Rowan left the room, he paused to reflect. Life had changed in ways he could never have imagined. From the magical night ant in Ash's ear to discovering sound for the first time, from laughter and chaos to confidence and resilience, every moment had been a gift. The city outside remained loud, messy, and unpredictable, but for Rowan and Ash, it was a symphony of endless possibilities. Rowan turned off the light and closed the door, feeling a deep, quiet contentment. The journey had been extraordinary, filled with magic, laughter, and love. Brighton Falls might be a normal city, but for a young vampire and his vibrant little son, life had become nothing short of extraordinary. And as Rowan lay in bed, listening to the hum of the city and the distant echo of Ash's laughter from a dream-filled sleep, he realized that everything he had worried about, the world, danger, the unknown, mattered far less than this. A boy discovering life, sound, and joy, and a father privileged to witness it all. Brighton Falls would never be the same, not because the city had changed, but because Rowan and Ash had. And sometimes, when Ash tells people how he got his hearing, he simply grins and says, with a mischievous sparkle, "An ant moved out." The story didn't end with magic, conflict, or drama. It ended with laughter, discovery, and a bond that nothing could break. Rowan and Ash, a young vampire father and his extraordinary little son, faced the world together, curious, fearless, and infinitely happy. Brighton Falls was normal, yes, but for Rowan and Ash, the extraordinary had become their everyday reality.